Hello all and welcome back to Shatter Our Soul Guard. Now, we are continuing Borderlands 1's first DLC, Jacob's Cove's zombie island of Dr. Ned. And, well, we're picking up exactly where we left off last week. The various monsters, zomboids, and everything else under the sun that Dr. Ned has created is kind of getting within arm's reach of Brick. And that's a bad thing for them. So, going forward, there's a couple things I need to mention. Number one, if at any point in time we take down a zombie, we must stop and get the brains. This is imperative to actually be able to finish this particular challenge, because brains are a consistently large problem for us. Because I need, right now, 50, and then another 100, and then another 250, that means before the end of this DLC, I need 400 brains. Still. And that's an absurd number. So, me stating this outright, I want to avoid needing more brains, so to speak, after the fact. So we're going to go on a zombie hunt any chance we get. Number two, we're also going to be dealing with what I consider to be kind of a mid-game challenge. There are 5 bosses we're going to be fighting, or 5 unique enemies, in that they are all individually named separately. These being Father O'Callahan, Whiskey Wesley, Hank Reese, there's 2 more. I think his name is Red Baron or something. And, yeah. Point being, we're going to be attempting to defeat all 5 of the named skags in the Generally Hospital area, along with finishing up a couple of side quests, because side quests are kind of important in this. And, yeah, that's kind of the gist of what we're aiming for today. And we're going to attempt to fight Pumpkinhead because we've leveled up since the last attempt, and I'm feeling lucky against him. And I'm immediately feeling less lucky against him because he seems to be doing a heck of a lot more damage than I remember. So, all of this, run, so to speak, I've been focusing very heavily on raw power. Focusing very heavily on output rather than defense. And that is partially because the best defense is a good offense. And in the case of Brick, it's even more true than I think most of us would care to admit. Now, the reason why it is so much different, so out there comparatively to what we would expect, is partially due to the fact that Brick's core ability set focuses very heavily on raw power and output. His Berserk mode, which is what's dealing out the bulk of our damage, is also dealing the bulk of our healing. Meaning that he's lasting in battles that otherwise he should not be able to. And that to me is a mark of a character that is definitely a lot stronger than I initially gave him credit for. Typically, when I think about characters and their strengths, I tend to look at raw power and range as the core of it. Generally speaking, healers, while they are incredibly useful, but they're also commonly incredibly niche. They don't really work the way that I'd like them to work. And that's a problem. But this somewhat more niche view of it actually works in our favor in this case. See, Brick is losing out on all of his range, which is why for the longest time I had assumed that Brick was the weakest of the 4 original Vault Hunters. Because he didn't have the range. He had raw power, and that was it in my initial expectations and planning for this. I didn't expect that he would have healing, or a healing factor half as strong as he does. So knowing that, we actually have a lot more to work with than I had initially anticipated. So much more that I actually question whether or not Brick is the strongest of the four from a gameplay perspective. I don't know. I would like to say absolutely Brick is, but let's be real. I have no idea. I tend to make assumptions on it. But knowing that, we can actually make inferences on how the remaining 3 DLC is going to go. So, our 3 remaining DLC are the Atlas DLC, focusing in on the secret armory of General Knox, which has a very heavy focus on vehicles, vehicle combat, and high movement speed, as well as, being able to defeat enemies that are in vehicles. That's fine. The second DLC we have to worry about is the Claptrap DLC, which, honestly, I don't think is going to be that big of an issue, excluding one unique entity. The third and final DLC is the one I actually want to bring up here. Mad Moxie's Underdome Riot. Now, Mad Moxie's Underdome Riot is a really weird DLC by comparison to most within the Borderlands franchise, in that it is a battle arena DLC. You catch it all the time. You have Digistruct Peak in Borderlands 2. You have the Digistruct Battle Dome in Borderlands pre-sequel. And you have Mad Moxie's Underdome Riot in the original. Now, the Underdome Riot is the most important of these 3 in my mind, because this one is actually canon. And it is canon to a point that I have to be very clear about my expectations and understanding. See, Mordecai actually, in canon, ends up marrying Moxie as a result of the events of the Underdome Riot. Therefore, it stands to reason that Mordecai being able to do something of that nature means indefinitely that he is more than capable of doing most things, right? But also means that playing through the Underdome Riot is a canon event within the entirety of the franchise, at least according to Mordecai. However, to do that as a deathless run is ridiculous, because you need so many tools at your disposal that it makes the challenge that much harder. The thing is that Brick and his unique setup, his unique battle style, actually works in our favor for this one. See, it is a 25 waves of enemies, roughly speaking, each ranging from about 7 to 15-ish enemies per wave. Brick can effectively go in, fight the enemies, and go back to a safe zone, wait for his health to recharge, and then do it again. Theoretically, using this as a benchmark, an idea of how it would work, Brick actually has a huge advantage in this particular challenge, as his goal, his typical playstyle, lends itself very heavily to Brick being capable of doing a lot more than most other characters could, just on the basics of he has the raw power to handle it, and his healing factor is what's going to put him over the edge and actually allow for the success of that DLC. And I don't often say it. I think it's a ridiculous premise to attempt 25 waves of battle without falling. But Brick is anything if not... Brick is nothing if not resilient. So knowing that capability that he has, I question whether or not we can make something work. Anywho, while I'm thinking about all of this, we kind of have to go about why the were-skags exist. So, what ends up happening within Jacob's Cove is that the people start getting sick, and Dr. Ned starts experimenting with new medicines. These medicines are incredibly potent. So potent, in fact, that they end up reviving the dead, creating the undead zombie brain eat style creatures that are the primary antagonist of this particular DLC. And that's great. But realizing he made a mistake, he created the were-skags. Using the DNA and blood of the skags, he created an entirely new, separate entity that are the were-skags. It effectively cures the zombie illness at the expense of turning them into a more bestial nature. Which is to say, it does a lot and it does absolutely nothing. Now, I personally like the were-skags because I think it's more funny or humorous, but at the same time, it's kind of a problem in general. Fun fact about the corpse eaters, they are actually a wild version of Bloodwing. See, Bloodwing, Mordecai's pet, actually ends up being a problem for Mordecai in one way or another because, unfortunately, Bloodwing is an entity that is... How do I want to word this? He is wanted for poaching because Bloodwing is a creature that is going extinct or in danger. And so, seeing that these corpse eaters, aka Bloodwings, are a thing, you actually get to see wild Bloodwing or corpse eaters doing what they do, which actually makes a huge bonus for Mordecai just existing, on the fact that they're more numerous than we once thought. Food for thought anyways. Sorry it's taking so long. I forget where all of Hank Reese's echoes are. It's been a fairly long time since I've done the Jacob's Cove DLC, and it's hit me a little harder than I would like to admit. Anyways, we're going to go with the Leave-A-Tooth Professionals side mission. See, how do I want to word this? Each of the side missions in this area kind of tie back to the primary zombie infestation in one way or another, explaining Hank Reese and his cure, or the potential cure for the zombie outbreak, explaining the outcomes of the attempts to deal with Hank Reese and his illness, explaining attempts to solve this problem in and of itself lead back to the same general outcome, which is that this area is absolutely doomed because of what Dr. Ned does. Yes, he is a good doctor. A great doctor, in fact. But he is not one that follows the code of doctors in general, first do no harm. Because in order to do these experiments to solve problems that he himself created, he is doing experiments that unintentionally or intentionally or not cause irreparable damage, irreparable harm to those that he experiments on and around. Anyways, what I'm kind of liking about this DLC in general, see, I give this DLC a bit of a bad rap. It's a zombie DLC. It's meant to be, one-off, start to finish. You play it for a little bit, you shut her down, play it again. Your enemies pretty much all rush towards you as if, because most of them only have melee damage type abilities. This is one of the cruxes, one of the issues that crops up on a regular basis when we talk about Borderlands 1's DLCs. See, the 3 DLCs for evolve into a if you have corrosive damage, you win, in the form of the Claptrap DLC. The Zombie DLC, which you can't use corrosive at all because you can't kill undead flesh. Or you can't destroy already dead flesh, at least that's the logic they use. These enemies all rush directly towards you as with no concern for self-preservation. You have the Atlas DLC, which has transportation issues, but it focuses in on a different side of the combat loop. And then you have the battle arena, which is just one-to-one, straight up battle, duel, fight, kill, and do it again. Right? So, the thing is that each of these 4 DLCs focuses in on something that Borderlands did that was somewhat unique by comparison to a lot of its companions, or what I would, not companions, competition. Most games had a zombie mode, but most games didn't have much of a storyline attached to it. Most games, if they had something that was a melee-focused enemy, didn't have nearly as many options or choices for what type to throw at the player. And so, unironically, this ends up being a much more versatile and well thought out DLC or mini story for Borderlands that adds a lot in terms of the close quarters combat. Where most players by the time of reaching it are probably very focused on long ranged type entities. This puts a focus in on you're going to get stuck in close quarter combat whether you want to or not. Therefore, you better get real used to it real quick. The second is the Nox DLC, which focuses in on the vehicle combat. Something that the base game doesn't exactly do the greatest job of. See, vehicle combat of the base game has 4 kind of setups, or 2 base setups. You have 8 color combinations, or 8 color schemes, and 2 weapon types. A rocket launcher or a machine gun. That is it. That is all you're done. Borderlands, the developers behind it decided that they were going to go and flip the script on their vehicle combat and created 3 new vehicles. The Racer, which is a rocket-powered version of the Runner. The Monster, which is a heavy-duty rocket, like home-in rocket-style machine that can absolutely obliterate virtually anything. And, what is it? It's an Atlas vehicle. It's an even more specialized, heavy-duty vehicle, very compartmentalized, and the only vehicle in the Borderlands 1 that can handle an entire server's worth of player all at once. Each of these vehicles had its own strengths and weaknesses, where the Atlas vehicle was very much designed around raw defensive might, and the fact that each of the 4 players had some role to play meant that everybody had a role to play in vehicle combat that was unique to them. But then you have the Monster, which had medium speed. It was definitely slower than the Runner, faster than the Atlas vehicle, and had enough firepower that a single player could very easily destroy virtually anything the game threw at it with the homing rockets. The Racer focused in on closing distances with extreme speed, and once you finished said challenge or got from point A to point B, you could easily swap it out for something else. And if not, you could use that extreme speed to your advantage and run over some big bad evil guys because you can. It added so much to the combat or to the vehicle combat in and of itself, that it's hard to ignore the vehicle combat setups altogether. But we can ironically, or unironically, go even further with it. See, you can also look at the third DLC, which I mentioned has a bit of a heavy focus in on the basics, shall we say. The claptrap style enemies don't really do a whole heck of a lot towards making the DLC itself more unique. I won't lie about that. But the thing is that each of these claptrap style enemies, you are fighting swarms of enemies that are easy to defeat, but are absolutely everywhere. And so you're fighting low-end horde enemies constantly in this DLC. I like that about the Claptrap DLC. Again, it focuses in on a slightly overlooked side to the combat and gameplay of Borderlands 1. Again, I can't help but say that I like that. And so, while the DLCs are often looked at as we really didn't know what we were doing, I would argue that they had a better grasp of what made a good DLC than most early DLC developers ever did. See, yes, it focuses in on something that didn't necessarily need to be focused in on. But each DLC does something different with the core of the game that showcases that there was more to the game's development and planning than met the eye. So, for that, I gotta give the DLC of Borderlands 1 at least a pass for its attempt. Anywho, now that we are officially at the point where we can start the skag hunt after 20 minutes, I didn't think it was going to take that long. We have to find Father O'Callahan's last camping spot. Now, O'Callahan is a bounty hunter of sorts, a religious zealot. And effectively, his whole... I don't want to call it gambit, I want to call it his role within this DLC is pretty well informed. He is an entity, a individual who is supposed to be kind of there as a... I don't want to say he's played for laughs. He's not. He is an individual who has plenty of opportunity to showcase what he is capable of, and does so rather well. Father O'Callahan, as a religious zealot, does typically hold his own quite well. He, as a bounty hunter, is attempting to destroy anything that he believes is unholy in nature. Example being zomboids. And he comes across the original skag. This skag is, of course, Hank Reese, whom we know as being, well, whom we've already knocked the teeth in on. But he gets grazed, injured during the battle. And now, he's feeling a little lightheaded. And the result of that is he opts to sleep off what little strength he has left, or sleep with what little strength he has left, aiming to attempt the arse kicking once again in the morning. Spoiler alert, he doesn't get that chance. He feels off. He ends up enjoying the full moon. And that's going to be his downfall. See, Father O'Callahan is one of those characters that under different circumstances could have potentially been a playable one. He's strong-willed, he drives towards a goal that the average person wouldn't dream of. He's stronger than your average individual. He survives a direct encounter with the skag, something that very few characters could ever dream of. And so, if he has survived a were-skag encounter, then he is doing far better than most ever would. But he's not infallible. He's not perfect. And his little injury that he received actually destroys any hope he has of success in his future. It's a light injury, something that anybody would end up with. But as I'm sure you can guess, it does exactly what we would expect it would. See, Father O'Callahan, after becoming injured and turned into a were-skag, is far more dangerous than you might think.
Oh, thank goodness! Get me the hell out of here! We have precious little time!
Before you go up and help that lying mobile toaster, you'll want to hear this. Dr. Nate is not who you think he is. And he's about as trustworthy as my dog I put down for being untrustworthy. Whoa! Whoa! Ooh, where'd that come from? Gotcha! Who boy? Hey! Whoa, 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 whoa! Just kidding around here. Just kidding around. Feel free to forget everything I just... This is all true. But don't take my word for it. Look for yourself. Take the boat tied to the pier to the lab on the other side. You'll find a door in the town that will require a special knock. I love special knocks.
Whoa!
I'm possessed. The knock sounds like this. Now go and leave this robot for the skags.
I will literally murder the person of your choosing if you just let me out of here. I never even liked Marcus. Just say the word.
I gotta love that moment. So, anyways,
Fearless zombie killer.
as
New
Mr.
at the Jacob's Cove Bounty
what's his face? Father O'Callahan has officially become a were-skag. He unfortunately has I want to call it the luck, that he has to deal with the fact that he accidentally creates an additional 3 wonderful were-skags in the form of Whiskey Wesley, Bigfoot, and Red Jack. There we go. With these 4 effective were-skags out on the loose, you have one option and one option only. You have to defeat all of them. See, the were-skag problem is not one that can be just brushed off. It is one that will continue to get worse, and the were-skags are even more dangerous than the zombies are. So, that's our next task. Fighting all of the were-skags one after another, and hoping for the best. Now, let's be real about this. I kind of talked a little bit about how Brick's raw power is impressive to say the least. I don't think I really dive into exactly how impressive it actually is. See, while fighting any of these, at any point if I run out of my special mode, the Berserk mode, I only need to run away for about 30 seconds at most. Probably closer to 15 now. And I get my power back to fight them again. Meaning that as long as I can survive a battle, I'm perfectly fine. There is nothing the game can throw at me that is going to actually do anything to me. And that's kind of scary when you think about it. See, for a long time, and for most of the game, I've kind of had this general idea of I am going to be this type of player. I'm going to be this type of character. I always had this sense of superiority about it. Like, yeah, I can do this because I did this over here. But with Brick, I don't really feel like I'm overstepping anything. I always feel like I have the tools for the job, even if the tools are just a pair of fists with, a couple of gauntlets on them. He still does the job. And that's honestly terrifying if you get right down to it. Brick, I think, is probably the character that if I play the game again, ever, I want to see what he can do at all levels of play, not just me using the bare minimum. See, I have a suspicion that Brick has, or is easily the strongest of the characters in terms of physical capability. I don't think anybody's going to argue with me there. But he also is in this wonderful situation where his greatest weakness is vehicles. And that unless you use vehicles of your own, most of the time he doesn't have the tools to handle them accurately or quickly enough to make it actually work for you. And that's kind of a shame, because in theory he has everything else going for him. It's just that he can't handle vehiculars. So, knowing that, I'm gonna see in the future whether or not there is anything I can do against certain entities. Anyways, here's Red Jack. Now, reality is that as Brick levels up, we also get a better chance of tackling each of the subsequent wonderful skags. So, unironically, every one we defeat actually just makes the next one easier. So, hooray for that. Red Jack, please don't hurt me. I promise, I won't hurt you again. I'll make it quick. Very quick. And with that, Red Jack is effectively defeated. There is nothing it can do to slow me down at this point in time. Hooray! So, 2 down, 2 to go. Can I even use that? Nope. Okay, we're just gonna throw it away. It's a shame. I would have liked to have increased elemental damage, but I digress. Hello, Whiskey Wesley. So, if we are to... In my opinion, I keep saying that I think Brick is the physically strongest. I think if it came down to a duel between Brick or Mordecai in the original game, Brick would have the edge, effectively. Mordecai has raw power at its disposal. He is a absurdly strong sniper, and in fact, he is a better sniper than even Zero. But the thing is that his capabilities are often just extensions of his sniping capabilities. Brick's capabilities are an extension of his raw physical strength. And when he does go berserk, anything that Mordecai can throw at him will be negated. Same with Roland. Originally, I had expected that Mordecai would be in second place of the 4. And I don't think I gave Brick the type of credit that he really deserved. I was always stuck on him being weaker than other characters simply because, well, he can't handle this or this at range. Therefore, the other guys can just get close enough to deal damage to him, and that's that. But I'm realizing that a fully powered up, raw strength version of Brick could do far more damage than I ever gave him credit for back in the day. But, what do you think? I know that this has been a lot of questioning power scaling and hacks, but I'm always curious, is there more to this than I ever gave credit for? Anyways, if you like what you see, drop a like, leave subscribe, and we'll catch you next time as we head further into the mess and really dive into the crux of the issue next week. This is Novaria signing off. I hope you all have a good one.
Huh?